Our guest today on the topic Gaslit, the global politics of denial, is Professor Saths Cooper, a renowned Black consciousness stalwart and psychologist.
Prof Cooper, thank you so much for coming to talk to us about an important matter that we're going to talk about today. We couldn't think of anyone better than you, really, to address this matter of gaslighting, political gaslighting of Black people, which we feel it's something that is global now. It's happened. There's not 1 inch of the world, of the planet, where Black people don't have to defend their humanity. There's not one, including where we are now here in South Africa. Not one place, 24/7, Black people have to constantly defend their humanity and all other kinds of abuses. And the disturbing matter is that it looks like Black people have actually developed mechanisms of accommodating this abuse. And if that happens, that people actually accommodate abuse, and how are they ever going to get out of it? So we think that this is a topic that needs to be raised now seriously by everyone who's Black around the world, because it seems to me the first step to get out of that is to wake up in the first place. So we want to talk about that today, to talk about the impact of this gaslighting on the victim, and also to understand the nature of the perpetrator of this gaslighting. And then we also want to talk about the political impact globally to Black people, what's going on there. And then, of course, we talk about how to combat it in the end. But before we do that, it would be nice if we can have a sneak preview of who Prof Cooper is. And I know, for me, that you have a luminous political activist career. You're also a luminous academic in the area of psychology. And I think for people who are listening this, they might want to understand you first, where you come from, before they can hear to the wisdom that we're going to share with you today. So, Prof, I know that you grew up in KwaZulu, and maybe you could start by telling us what was it like there in KwaZulu as you grew up, and then all the way to where we are now.
Well, I grew up in a place called KwaDabeka now. It was a rural area, a small farming, and it's between Claremont and Wynberg, right? On the maps now.
Near Durban.
Yes, outside Pinetown.
Outside Pinetown.
And it was, in some senses, idyllic, because when you look back and think of your childhood, one tends to block out those things that were negative or treated you in a particular way. And it's natural, in fact, for most children to remember the horror and try to block that out, but go to the highs or the happinesses that they may have experienced. And sometimes childhood memories can be flawed, just as adult memories can be flawed. But for survival, one looks at that background and you build on that positively. Or you can fall into the negative, and it warps your entire thinking into teenagehood, into young adulthood, into being an adult, and then being older than that. So the first thing is there was no school nearby. My mother was a a qualified teacher. And when after my brother's birth, 2 years after me, my mother started with my father to say, what are you going to do about schooling for these boys?
No schooling. So when you say no schooling, where in the farm?
In the farm area completely.
And the farm, who owned the farms?
Well, people own them individually, or it was communal property. You know,
because this is the dynamic society. I mean, because I know from knowing you that you could speak Xhosa and Zulu and Tamil and these multiple languages. Where was that through experience in that environment?
Yes, I mean, I've lost a lot of isiZulu because you don't use it, you lose it, and it was the language that was spoken. So the kids and all of us engaged at that level with the older people. But the schooling became central. And so my mother pushed my dad to give up a storeroom as a classroom, makeshift classroom. And that grew. From the time I was in my 4th year of existence, there was this big class or storeroom where you had kids of all ages in one room.
One big room.
And then it got separated the following year into the advanced one and those who would catch up.
Partitioned.
Basically by age.
Partitioned.
Not partitioned, but there was a separation. So my mother taught the one, and my aunt, her sister after herself, taught the other. So I would hear both sides and catch up with things. So, and schooling wasn't important really. I just cruised along. But started asking, why are the kids next door, not in the school? During the day, they had to go to Fannin school.
So the kids next door were the Africans?
African.
Yes.
Zulu speaking. Right? And eventually realized that that this was government policy. So earlier in life, you realize there are barriers, if you like, created, not physical, because the physical would be a group area where only certain people could go. But in school, it became a group area. Everyone who was of, that indenture stock, post-slavery. So the others had to go to a school many kilometers away. And
so all of this is happening. You're observing this, what's happening. Not that it's something that is a matter of, it's a topic generally. So it's just happening. You're observing on your own.
I'm observing.
So
and
it's accepted and it's entrenched. It's embedded. No one questions it.
It's the norm.
It's a norm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as a kid, kids explore. I was exploring. Well, how come this is happening? And then my father would grunt, but not say much about what was going on. My mother would then explain it was government policy and say, and I ask questions about it. Then you realize, okay, this is another group. So in a sense, the classification, race classification, starts growing because you realize somebody else is classified differently and you are classified differently. So you're caught between the two. And that quest to not have those barriers stayed with me and just increased.
So all of this basically then was like an organic growth into politics for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Because then maybe we should move there, because then you went on to be an activist in student politics and all. Maybe let's get, where did that actually get right?
At high school, the high school was in the heart of Durban, and there were train stations, there were many bus ranks, huge ones, markets, and then schools, Catholic, Anglican, and Sastry College was a boys' school. It was for Indian persons of Indian origin, but in the school we had some who may have been classified, say, colored, and so on, but because their father was classified Indian or their mother, then those boys were in Sastry College. So
if you were classified Indian and then you married a Zulu person, the product was colored?
Product was colored. And
I did not know
yes,
that.
and mixed. And the in-between grouping is from the time of colonization, effective colonization in the Cape. And it grows over time. So the lens through which we look at ourselves now is the same from the colonial era. Entrenched then, the Union of South Africa is formed with the two former British protectorates on the coast, the Cape and then Natal, and the Orange Free State, by the way, and Transvaal. So if I or my family had to leave Natal, you had to have a permit to go cross the border. Certain towns you are not allowed to enter. If you went via the Free State, it was between daylight hours, between 6 and 6. Thereafter, if you were still traveling, you'd be arrested. Right? So all those kinds of things happen. And I was involved in poetry, drama, and became
at high school now.
At high school, and it continued that way into University College. One of the
this University College is University of Natal. Then
University College Durban. In the you had to take a ferry in the Durban harbour to get to it. It's adjacent to the bluff. It's a little strip there. It was an old army or naval encampment that then became University of Durban Westville.
Oh, right, I see.
Before that. So in that period, I became acutely aware of the impact of parcels. I would have been about 15 when I see these two burly, they were called blackjacks, Zulu speaking, and men, usually very large. And there was a grayish kind of kwela they had. And whenever people saw that, they would dash. I saw this kid. I'm calling him a kid now, but I could see he's probably my age, but I was tall and he was shorter, and he was chased and caught against a fence by these two guys, these blackjacks, and they started beating him up. And I rushed up and said, "Why are you beating him?" They stopped. They said, "Do you know him?" I said, "No." "But why are you beating him?" And they mumble. I tell them that they shouldn't be doing that because he could be your son. Why are you doing that? And then I realize it's for the pass compliance. Because when you were African and you turned 16, you had to have on your person at all times this reference book, which is then called a pass and so on. And you had to have a stamp allowing you to be in that area that you are found in. If not, you're automatically charged and shipped out as cheap labor to farms, to other
Wherever.
establishments. Because the sentence, say, is 3 months or 300 rand. At that time,
and this sentence is automatic. There's no court appearance or anything like that.
There is, but people come in droves.
Yeah.
They are caught under certain sections of the urban areas, Bantu, whatever acts, and they did not have their permit to be there. Dom pass, whatever it's called, whoever calls it, whatever. But it's significant that the Afrikaners called it a dom pass because that was the imposition.
Well, I mean, even the term, the dome pass.
Yes, exactly.
Dome pass basically being dome. Afrikaans
You are dome.
Stupid.
Exactly.
So it's a stupid part. Yeah. But that in itself was a psychological, had a psychological impact.
Absolutely. It was intended to inferiorize. So the upshot of this is they stop, but he's bleeding. So I take out, and I was left-handed when I started as a kid, but then became more right-handed, because when you grow up left-handed in all our cultures, there's something wrong with it. You need to change. So I take out my handkerchief and I give it to him, and because he was bleeding. I mean, he's against the fence right down there, and he accepts that and uses it. And then the sergeant walks up, because I look and I see the kwela right on the curb, and he asked me the same thing. Do you know this person? I said, no. Why are you interfering? I said, because this is wrong. You're imposing past laws, and you are doing it against your own kind. The guy listens. He says, well, you've made your point, but if you don't move away from here now, I'll arrest you for interfering in the course of our duties. So I realize now I'm going to be in the same boat. And so I'm angry, but I realize these 3 guys are going to dump me into the kwela with this other team. And he then gives me the handkerchief. It's bloodied. And I say, no, keep it, you need it. But that look, it's like you driving at night and you see some cat or animal with your headlights. That sort of look.
Shock.
Yeah. And it was in the afternoon, late afternoon, but the sun was shining. And that look was a look that I would not want to confront ever again. And I said, no, keep it, right?
So this was a look of fear, helplessness, or both? What was
both?
What kind of impact did all of this experience have on that individual?
On that individual, I don't know what happened afterwards.
From a psychological point of view now.
But there was gratefulness that I had interceded. I could see that because they stopped. And then when he handed the handkerchief back to me, I said, keep it, because you need it more than I do. And that from that day, one day, I haven't used a handkerchief in my life. I use
you still
tissues.
have it?
No, I haven't used a handkerchief. I only use tissues.
Oh, right. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So for some 60 years now, I've never used a handkerchief.
So you were also impacted
Yeah, absolutely.
immensely by this.
You cannot.
So, Prof, let's move on to the crux of the matter, because all of this was basically the background to you before you became, if you like, formally active into politics. Maybe let's get there. I'd like us maybe to start with the involvement in student politics. Did you start at University College?
Yes, University College, 1968.
1968. This was before the formation of the South African Student Organization.
Before Steve Biko was a medical student at the Ratele University Medical
You met Steve Biko there in
So, 68 is the period I became acquainted with Steve.
Right.
I get elected to a few societies. He's active at the medical college. There used to be black colleges sporting events that were held annually, different sport and so on. He was involved in that. That was used as a base for SASO, which many people won't acknowledge or don't realize was happening. So the involvement with Steve grew from, I would say, the second half of 1968 and continued. So the following year, I get expelled, initially suspended, and then on condition I don't set foot on that campus because I was opposing the formation of a university that gave its own degrees but would be known as an ethnic degree versus a UNISA degree was what all these bush colleges had cover over.
Let's zoom into the formation of SASO, because I think the formation of SASO is very important in terms of the topic that we're discussing now, because it captures the interactions between the conservative forces of oppression and then the liberal forces of oppression and the actual oppressed people. So if you can just tell the viewers the actual event that caused the trigger for the formation of SASO.
Well, look,
because you were all in the National Union of South African Students at the time. NUSAS.
I never became a member of NUSAS.
Of NUSAS, yeah.
Yeah, but the others were, because that was the only official university student society, English speaking, versus the Afrikaanse Studentenbond, which was the Afrikaans version. And Steve and a few others had the ability to traipse these different bodies. And the trigger was NUSAS's conference in Grahamstown, where the events were held at Rhodes University. But when it came to sleeping, accommodation, the whites remained at the university and the blacks were shunted to the township. That became a trigger. But there are other triggers, like the student sporting side, the black sporting side, which gave them an association. It wasn't formal, but it was through sport. And so all these university colleges participated. And then it became...
and at this time, of course, NUSAS, a white student organization, wanted full rights within the liberation.
Oh, well, they could never accept that blacks would have the ability to raise issues that concerned the majority, because they became his master's voice, if you like, but not the direct oppressor, but the indirect oppressor, because these were the scions of extractive capitalists. These were the English, liberal, but grounded in colonial thought and grounded in their own sense of leadership, that they had to be involved. So their involvement in the black world, if you like, became something that was done, but quick retreat to your comfort zone. Right? And the abiding message to that leadership was, you know what, excuse us while we deal with ourselves, because we don't need you to tell us anything about our condition, because we live that condition. They couldn't take it, continued to try to insinuate themselves in different ways, and then morphed out into underpinning wages commissions, underpinning the research and other backgrounds for what were unions which were illegal if Africans participated, and then subsequently became legal. So they morph into other areas, still retaining their privilege. So, for instance, funeral benefits that black people are afflicted with. Who do you think owns those funeral benefit schemes? And who were runners for those benefit schemes amongst the people they were interacting with? They are now the multimillionaires and on the stock exchange and elsewhere. So that sense of
it's the same people who wanted to be spokespersons
absolutely,
of the liberation movement.
You know. So the SASO is inaugurated at the University of the North, Turfloop, now Limpopo. Right? And by then I'm on the way to expulsion, and I say to Steve, I'm not attending. And he insisted. That was my first disagreement with Steve. I'm not attending.
So all of
I'm
this
expelled.
was triggered basically by that. You know, as we say, there was a whole lot of many things.
Absolutely.
But the separation, the segregation, because now they started to practice apartheid.
Absolutely.
In the conference. And I believe that's when then Steve Biko retaliated by coming to address the conference in Xhosa.
In Xhosa, yes.
Because
and they objected. Some of them objected.
And then defeated you by a vote.
Well, but the point was made. The point was made, and that's where the withdrawal took place. To say, now we need to review where we are. SASO gets formed. I refused to attend because I didn't want the newspapers to be saying, well, look at who attended, this guy was expelled. I was not a student.
Now, this is also interesting, because right now, what you're saying that event, although it was an event triggered by a lot of other things that had happened, it caused now a separation between black students and white students who were all in the liberation movement at the time.
Well, let me not say liberation movement. They were more anti-apartheid.
They were more,
anti-apartheid.
It was anti-apartheid then. It was regarded.
Exactly.
In fact, that's probably an important part, because at the time it was all regarded as just anti-apartheid. So they were all part of the anti-apartheid movement. So now blacks move to Turflop to start a new organizations. Whites remain. So what developed as a result? I mean, did the whites now become a separate thing?
No, they continued.
They continued to try to interact.
They continued. Their head offices were in Cape Town. Okay. And they had regional offices, obviously at the University of Natal, at the main Howard College campus, Wits University, etc. SASO is formed farther away from them as possible, now that I'm thinking about it. And I'm not aware that any of them did attend, right? But what I know is that Steve is elected as president. Bani Pichana follows him thereafter as president. And after his stint is over, while he's in his stint as president the following year, Bani gets imposed upon by Steve to say, look, we need to have a headquarters, and you the right guy to be the Secretary General full-time. And Bani eventually agreed and became the full-time Secretary General, and it was in Durban. Most of these headquarters, Johannesburg, the center of the industrial center of South Africa, Cape Town, New Sas because of its UCT links, and having Durban as a headquarters broke the mold. But it was also a convenience because key people in SASO were in that location.
So during this time, SASO is moving away as far as possible from them.
Right.
Are they moving also away, or are they moving towards? Are they pursuing SASO?
No, it's the first constitution doesn't use the word black. It says we, the non-white students. Okay, and subsequent to that, the discussion begins. That look, we can't be non-anybody else, right? If I describe this class as a non-monde, what am I saying? Non-nihil nothing. And we were...
So monde is the standard.
Monde needs to be the standard, not somebody else. And if you understand that as a person, and that's why black becomes a political, socio-political definition. All those who by law, tradition,
which many people what to call confuses actually the term black. Maybe it's something that needs also now that we've got a chance to say, because the black with a capital B is quite different from black with a small letter b.
Yes.
The black we're talking about now is a black with a capital letter B. It's nothing to do with pigmentation or any hue, basically.
No. But it's one of political solidarity. You see, the definition being all those who are discriminated against by law or tradition and who identify as a group towards realization.
Who've got a common agenda.
Absolutely. That second leg becomes a definer. So we use the term non-white against police, for instance. That's why the phrase I coined, the last black man to see Biko alive, was Peter Jones. Right? So otherwise there were non-white and white policemen. So the first interim constitution defined black, specifically in the constitution. The subsequent one, adopted in 96, in
1960.
Parliament, 1996, in Parliament of this country now. I'm talking about 94, interim constitution, 96, constituent assembly within Parliament that Cyril Ramaphosa leads, and Mbeki gives his I'm an African speech after. So black gets removed. Even in other laws, one of the laws was the labor laws and the black economic empowerment laws. But subsequently, I haven't checked which ones still have that definition. But the constitution gets changed to play the colonial game as well as the entrenchment of apartheid racial classification.
So, Prof, because we want to move now to the matter of psychology, but I think it's worth mentioning that besides your entry into SASO then led to a whole lot of things. You got incarcerated, you ended up in Robben Island, you were part of the SASO, famous SASO 9, which of course, I mean, you've got I've got papers here where people can read about that history if they are interested. But I think for the purpose of this topic, I know that while you were in Robben Island, you then started studying what you call psychology, and completed the degree while you were at Robben Island. Is that correct?
Well, look, I had credits, and I continued studying through UNISA after I was refused a passport.
in the University of South Africa.
South Africa, right. And when arrested in September 1974 for celebrating the independence of our neighboring countries, Angola, Mozambique, and we called it the Viva Frelimo rallies because people identified more with that country than with Angola because it was one removed from us, even though South Africa was heavily involved in the whole of Southern Africa, controlling liberation outcomes in all those countries on behalf of the West. So I get convicted. It's the start Tien, the state versus S. Cooper and eventually 8 others. And June 16th happens plumb in the middle of our defense trial. The year before, in June 75, the first charge sheet gets withdrawn, and that charge sheet maps out what Black consciousness is likely to do. And Soweto was one such.
This is mapped out by whom now? By the oppressors?
State, by the state. And on the 23rd of June 75, when we appear in court and we know that the charges are going to get quashed, the prosecutor, the Deputy Attorney General of the Transvaal, stands up and addresses the court in Afrikaans and says that they were withdrawing the charges. So he preempted the ignominy of having a charge sheet declared null and void, right? Dismissed actually. And we were then 14, and the others were released on warning that they're likely to be charged. And we continued. So on the 17th of June 1976, Labon Mabasa is witness for the defense, and he's cross-examined, and he's asked, where do you live? And he says, Soweto. He says, Chawela. And he asks, where's that? And he says, Soweto. He says, how was it last night? Well, it was fine. Did you have any problems traveling in or? No. And this morning, no, I had no problems. And then he confronts him with a copy of the Rand Daily Mail, showing the Soweto uprising. And the defense objects, our lawyers object, because we're not facing that charge anymore. But the judge allows it, and we recognize the case going pear-shaped. We knew we were convicted. But one step further, at the end of February, March 1976, Kenny Rachidi, BPC president, Tiza Mazibuko, Secretary General of the BPC, Drake Coker, former convener of the BPC and first Secretary General, Tom Mantata was a BPC member, Aubrey Mokoena was a BPC member, and after they were brought in to visit us by our attorney on the guise of they're going to be our witnesses because our defense case was starting end of March and the beginning of April. And after the usual hugs and handshakes and everything else that you associate with Black consciousness, our handshake, etc.
The elaborate handshake.
Kenny and Drake say, well, we wanted to introduce you to these young leadership in Soweto. And it was Seth Mazibuko, who was 15. He turned 16 on the 15th of June 1976. Dan Mutsitsi was there. There was one other, and I forget who it was. But we engaged with them and so on. And Kenny then says, the opposition to Afrikaans is growing and something big is going to happen. When that happens, our worry is you, that's us the accused, will be convicted. And at that moment, I realized there's likely to be at least one accused, and I'm not going to mention him, who I can hear behind me with a little whine, and I know there's going to be an objection. And I say, look, we were leaders, we're not leaders, we're in prison. You are the leaders, you elected, and you leading us, and the will of the people shall not be suppressed. And everyone said, Amandla, it became a fait accompli. So we knew the consequences, and we were convicted. And when we landed in Robben Island in December, we already found the groups from Belleville, Paarl, and Belleville and Paarl. UWC, now UWC, then University College. No, it was already university then, sorry. From the University College and Paarl, who were convicted, and they were already in the isolation block. So we joined them. 1976 became a watershed in prison and elsewhere. The first time M, meaning maximum, is added to your prison number. So my number was M25/76. And the largest number, the highest number, was 32 that year. 32, maybe 33.
And I believe you were in the same block as Nelson Mandela.
Subsequently, yeah. I mean, the isolation block, we could see them. They could hear us, and we'd pass messages and so on. And then January, the walls start getting built to preclude us communicating.
With the Mandela...
Right. And then...
So was this arranged in terms of political organizations?
Post-76.
Post-76.
76 was a watershed moment in our politics. So the post-76 inmates, who became the largest grouping ever from 77 into 78, beating all other records, the Portco period from 1961, then the Rivonia period, 64.
So the wall was intended to do what? It's Mandela's people this side, and then it's who this side?
Isolation. Isolation, punishment block. Then there's other blocks in the prison. These are not single cells. These are communal cells. And each of them starts having walls built to separate the one from the other, because they recognize 76 for what it was.
There was a shift in the way that people were thinking.
Yes.
And
let me just mention something else which is important.
Yes.
That post-76 negotiations started, because we confront the fact that there's a meeting going to be held with Matanzima to release the Xhosa-speaking trialists of Livonia. Okay? And we stopped that. So when 76 happens...
Matanzima, of course, for the benefit of the viewers who might not know, was now the what called? What were they called? The president, the paramount chief.
Kaiser was paramount chief, but he was president of an independent Transkei.
Yes.
And his brother, George, was the prime minister.
Prime minister, right.
And this was a delegation that was going to be led by George. And it got called off the evening before that Saturday weekend, when it was going to happen, because of our impact. And we said to them, you can't be released into the Transkei.
Now, because for us, before we move on to the next what to call topic, why did you decide to do psychology while in prison?
I was studying law, right? I a basic arts degree with a few law subjects, and that was after I got expelled. Before that, I was going to do the pure arts, liberal arts, performing arts, etc., English, and so on. And I continued with English. I majored in English. I had psychology, which I decided I'll major in, and I majored in philosophy, but only allowed to study in the last 2 years of imprisonment, because our group, everybody else was allowed to study. The SASO BPC 9, were refused from 78 to study.
Anything, to study anything.
Anything. And all of us were post-university or university students, you know. And you can imagine the impact that has, because our position was very simple. There's a struggle going on outside, and we have to participate in that in some meaningful way, rather than blithely carry on as if nothing is happening. And that activism led to us being precluded from study. So sitting in isolation again after refusing hard labor in the quarry, with UWC, former UWC students and fellow, or my co-accused, I decided I cannot do law. I'm going to be doing this arts degree, and I may have majored in, say, private law, but I'm not going to do law because I'm not going to come out of prison at the end of 82, and in 83 start doing articleships or doing something else in law, and swear allegiance to an apartheid state. I'm not going to do that. That's not a commentary on anybody else. It was my decision, and I take full responsibility for my own decisions, not casting aspersions on anybody else. And so I pursue psychology. Obviously, people will say, well, because of the traumas and the other episodes one had.
Well, I'm asking that question because I see the role in which psychologists, the pivotal role actually, that psychologists played in the polity of South Africa.
Absolutely.
I mean, your papers here that I have talk actually about, many people talk about Verwoerd having been the architect of apartheid. But from what I'm reading from these books here, you've got this paper here with Kopano Ratele, Black Consciousness Psychology of Steve Biko, which I think a lot of stuff we already covered sort of about it. We've got another one. This was which year was this paper? But it's Africanizing South African Psychology. And then you've got this one with Lionel Nicholas. These are all interesting papers because it's making sure that we understand that psychology is not a universal kind of discipline. It's got contexts, and and in these papers you actually reveal to me, at least, that Wilcox actually was the architect of apartheid. Am I correct? And Verwoerd actually was the protege of
Yes.
Wilcox.
Yes, Wilcox, you see, it was when the Stellenbosch Gymnasium became a university. Wilcox was the one to head what was probably the first psychology department, well, in Southern Africa. In Southern Africa, yeah, in Stellenbosch. And then it was followed soon after by UCT. Wilcox had a direct link to Nazism at the time. Became the principal of the university. That building has been renamed. It's no more the Wilcox building because of the role they play. So,
so psychologists have do play a significant role in political systems.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm learning.
Absolutely.
That's why I'm asking you the question. Why did you become a psychologist?
Well, look, because I recognized its value. I recognized that this discipline can be used for evil, as it has been until then in South Africa and other places. But it can also be used to liberate, because if you understand that evil, you can counteract that. That's why I say that the two native ideologies in what is called South Africa. which only
Excellent.
starts 1910. That's apartheid, which, well, these guys were key in, and Vervoorters and others are accredited with entrenching that. Then there's black consciousness as a reaction to narrow whiteness.
Let's not get into that very deeply, because that's where we're going to move now. Let's take a break. But that's where we're going, to talk about that psychology of liberation.
Good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's take a quick break.